So, it's been 4 months since the last significant update to 7 Days to Die, and it's been 10 months since the last major update. That means we're probably approaching time for another big 7 Days to Die update, and we know that the next update is going to be 3.0, Sandbox Siege. Now let's cover probably the most important thing, the most talked about thing about 3.0 that they've been telling us for like 3 years is coming in 3.0, bandits. They're not coming in 3.0. No, apparently the roadmap was completely reshuffled after the 2.0 shitstorms brewing update, and 3.0 is now Sandbox Siege, and 4.0 is the new threat update, which is the bandit update. And we've even heard from the developers that they plan on doing more updates than were originally planned. This was supposed to basically be done in 4.0 with everything moving over one. That's obviously become 5.0, but there are even talks for even later updates than that. Now, a few members of the community have been speculating that perhaps Behaviour Interactive's purchase of the Fun Pimps will result in 7 Days to Die not necessarily being a game that is finished, but will maybe transition to a live service, or more accurately a continuously updated game like Minecraft. For example, Minecraft was officially done in 2011, but they've kept adding to it anyway. I don't know if you can call Minecraft a live service game because it's not like they give you season passes or anything like that, but it is a continuously updated game nonetheless. And maybe 7 Days to Die is going to go down that path now that they have a new company basically calling the shots. We just don't know. On the plus side, apparently 4.0, or at least the bandit update, whatever number that will be, will actually come out in 2026 as well. However, that seems fairly unrealistic, and the Fun Pimps have yet to ever deliver on a 6-month major update cycle, but they might have new funding from Behaviour, so who knows. I, however, am done collecting Fell for It Again awards, so I'm not going to put much stock in them coming in 2026. If 3.0 isn't the bandit update, then what is Sandbox Siege? Well, back when 2.0 shit the bed, there was a big community outcry for a return to more of the old DNA of 7 Days to Die, which, to be clear, wasn't a new outcry with 2.0, but it reached a boiling point in 2.0. This has been bubbling since at least Alpha 21. People were looking for a more hardcore survival experience, so to speak. 7 Days to Die has definitely been pushing down the RPG looter shooter path since Alpha 21, and that finally came to a head a year ago. Now, the devs said they were listening, and to their credit, they did give us 2.5, which did feature a lot of new good survival features, calling it the Survival Revival Update, but they also saw another side of that argument, which is that some people, if you can believe it, actually like 7 Days in its current state and the direction it was going in. I know, I don't get it either. Jokes aside, the devs saw all those jokes and a fair few genuine requests about putting almost all of 7 Days to Die's features on a toggle and said fuck it, and did it. In February, we saw this tweet which showed a sneak peek at just some of the toggles they were putting in the game. Apparently there are actually over 100 of them, but we can only see the ones that have been edited with this Romero preset here. And just a quick point on the presets, apparently you're going to be able to turn your preset into a little code that you can give to other people and they can play your preset. So you'll be able to share these settings around, which is really helpful because of course if you have 100 settings, it can be quite difficult to replicate the exact settings someone else is playing if you miss something. So we can give codes out so that people can play on our settings, which is a good feature, I think. Now on this specific preset, we can see here that there's a range damage slider, a jump height slider, incoming damage modifier, a lose item on death count, so if you want to not lose your entire backpack or belt, you can just choose to lose 10 items. There's entity block damage, that is to say any kind of non-block thing, so zombies, robotic turrets, hypothetical bandits, and animals, those are all entities. Zombie rage chance, which we later learned refers specifically to the rage mechanic where zombies randomly speed up in combat when hit, not the rage mechanic that causes zombies to attack your base. They're both called rage, take it up with the Fun Pimps, I'm just the YouTuber. There's also a compass toggle, a workstations in the wild percentage modifier. This is a mechanic that used to be in the game already, which allowed some of the wild spawning workstations you find to be working already. You'll be able to set that to a custom value and return that old feature to the game. There'll be ammo abundance, and we also know they had plans for medical and food abundance that presumably aren't affected by the Romero preset, so they're not listed here. There's a vending machine toggle, a run speed modifier, stamina regen modifier, there's the allow newbie coat toggle. This is the protection buff you get at the start of the game with the little coat on the bottom left. Entity damage, again this is zombies and stuff, and it's the damage they do to you. This indicates that things like Nomad, Adventurer, Insane aren't going to be difficulty modifiers anymore. They're going to be split into incoming damage and outgoing damage so that you can fully customize that experience. So if you want really, really lethal zombies that do huge amounts of damage but die really quickly, you can do that. We have Allow Zombie Digging, Allow Map, which is a fun one, the Show Day and Time, which is an interesting one, especially if they ever add an item to, I'd say, diegetically find out the time, like a watch or something. There's Heat Map Sensitivity, basically how frequently screamers spawn, which in the current version of the game is hard locked to fucking constantly. Quests enabled. They also mentioned health bars being toggleable for those of you who've been asking for that feature to exist outside of God mode and mods. A points for magazine option to speed up or slow down or potentially even disable the magazine based progression system, which I'll explain later. There's also apparently a max trader stage option, so you can limit how effective traders are for you as well. And even options to disable the trader protection. And no, I don't know if you can kill Trader Rect before you ask. And that's only a fraction of what they have planned, apparently. Probably about a quarter of what they have planned, if they are correct. Now, all that said, I think 3.0 Sandbox Siege will be a pretty objectively good update with just what I mentioned there. I mean, hundreds of the most popular mods for 7 Days to Die are basically going to be made native, making their features accessible to console and PC players who can't be bothered to mod, whilst also being fully customizable in a very accessible way, which I think is a major win for the game. But the big question on my mind is this enough to stop the violent revolution of the broader community once they realize that once again bandits have been delayed? Tough to say. There is some other stuff that is probably coming to 3.0. We don't know 100% because they're being deliberately quite vague about when things are coming. Can't imagine why. But for one, we know about the chicken coop, which I think is actually confirmed for 3.0. The chicken coop is going to be a new workstation that works like the Dew Collector or Apiary, presumably for eggs, with 3 upgrades like the other 2 workstations. Fun fact, they actually left a lot of the stuff planned for the chicken coop, cement mixer, chemistry station, and workbench in the code of 2.5, but they removed it after I made a video mentioning it. But yeah, the plan was clearly to add upgrades to all the workstations, like how the Forge has its 3, and I wouldn't be 100% sure of all that now, especially since they removed it, but I think that might have genuinely been to spite me specifically. We also know that to use your chicken coop, you're going to have to find chickens and somehow capture them alive. No, not with eggs, as someone suggested before. Additionally, Fatal mentioned that he worked on some AI that controls how the zombies react to you holding that chicken, so you might have to defend your chicken. We also know that the devs are planning a rework to the crafting progression because of the criticism around the learn by reading system. The plan last time they said it, which was like 5 months ago, is to add crafting, repairing, and item combining as methods of increasing your crafting skills alongside the magazines so that you're not completely dependent on magazines if you don't want to play that way. Now, if we refer earlier to the new skill points per magazine toggle, it seems as if we'll be able to just turn off the skill magazines essentially and just do learn by doing, which would indicate to me if the magazine toggle is going to be in 3.0, then we're going to have the alternate method of progression in as well, but that's not a guarantee. We also know they plan to add much higher levels of crafting skill, with the goal being hundreds of levels per skill tree to essentially allow continuous near infinite progression and to allow you to combine 2 good items to get the best out of the both of them. This was with the goal of essentially removing that end point of 7 Days to Die progression. You know, that point where you have everything on day 10 and it's all level 6 and the game becomes an exercise in base building and ammo crafting. They want to remove that dead end and have the progression go on for much, much longer, to the point where you probably don't even care to finally eventually max it out. You'll probably get bored of the game before that point happens. Additionally, the plan was to add levels to other items that are currently static in their level. The 3 big ones they mentioned were grills, cooking pots, and vehicle mods, but they alluded to more, and all of these are going to have progression to them that allow you to have more to do essentially and upgrade these things. For example, a cooking pot could be higher level and allow you to craft things with your cooking pot faster. In that same vein, they have also mentioned that they are planning on adding a actual stove to the game, so you're not always on campfires, but it's been a hot minute since they mentioned that. I don't know if that's going to be 3.0. I'm just adding it in here for people looking for the future of 7 Days to Die and stuff. But overall, we don't know if anything except for the chicken coop there is 100% actually in 3.0. But the original plan was to have these in something like 2.8 or maybe even 2.9, but we know that now the plan is for 2.6 to be the last 2. Whatever update, and everything After that is now just moving to 3.0. Will it include these? It's too soon to say. The Fun Pimps are being very tight-lipped at the moment as of the recent Behaviour Interactive acquisition. But I wanted to make a final roundup of everything we know about 3.0 because it's been about 5 months since my last one, and the landscape of 3.0 has completely changed since then. Half the features there in that video were delayed to current 3.0, and half the features in that video were actually put out early in 2.5, so the video is useless. It's a list of 4.0 features and 2.5 features. But if I had to guess, I would say 3.0 is probably going to come out in the next 2 to 3 months, specifically more in June or July, because the Fun Pimps really seem to love doing their updates in June, July, or December. That's when all of the most recent updates, dating back to like Alpha 18 or something, have come out. Which means we should be getting news any day now, so subscribe to stay up to date on that. And if you want to know more about how the Fun Pimps got bought by Behaviour Interactive, check out this video where I go over all the news when it came out. It's kind of old now, but if you've not known about this, it's news to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.